In today's public webinar, we're going to provide you with a brief overview of our system, show some of our standard features and a few optional ones as well. My name's David Knight, and I'm going to be your host for today's webinar along with Kevin MacArthur. And in today's public webinar, it's going to be divided into three parts. The first part of the webinar is going to be a brief introduction about our company and our software program. And in the second part, Kevin will provide a live demo of FileHold. And in the final part of this webinar, it's reserved for your questions. And at any time, you can type your questions in our chat window, and we'll respond and share our answers with you and the rest of the group at the conclusion of today's live demo. All right, so without any other further delays, we're going to get moving now into the introduction. So why do you need a document management system for your business or department? Well, here are some common problems that we hear from many businesses that aren't using a document management system such as FileHold. First of all, how can we get rid of all these filing cabinets full of paper? Well, FileHold can help reduce your paper footprint by scanning and storing your documents electronically. We even include a scanning software program that assists with this process. Another question we have is, how do we know which is the most recent version of a document? Who was working on it last? FileHold's version control feature allows you to track where your documents are and what is the latest version that is currently being worked on. Another question is, why can't we share our documents to be reviewed and signed off by others? Well, FileHold's workflow feature allows you to share and circulate your documents electronically for review and approval. We also have e-signature capabilities as well. Another question we receive from many people are, we have too many paper forms. Why can't they be electronic? FileHold has eForms processing capabilities so documents can be filled out electronically. We also have a customer forms portal that can be used to download and upload forms and other related documents. Another common question we have is how can we stay compliant with record retention and disposition requirements? FileHold has document retention features that ensure the life cycle for each document can be stored, classified, and updated right through to the scheduled deletion or disposition. And finally, what safeguards do we have to protect our intellectual property? FileHold provides a secure and centralized environment to store and manage your documents, and we have user security settings that can be set on every drawer, folder, and document that's stored in FileHold. So if you have any of these issues, FileHold would be a great help to you. With FileHold, you can scan or upload various documents such as invoices, manuals, contracts, and resumes into FileHold's document repository, where they can be accessed from your desktop, web browser, and mobile device. FileHold offers both perpetual and monthly per-user licensing options for our customers. FileHold can be installed using one of the following three options. It can be installed on premises on your own server. It can be installed in the cloud with the hosting provider of your choice. Or FileHold also provides our own cloud hosting services in the Azure environment. For easy purchase, FileHold offers competitor trade-in credits, interest-free financing, and rental programs with no ongoing obligation. So if you're interested in receiving a price quote, just send an email to sales@filehold.com, and a member of our sales team will get right back to you with that information. FileHold has a very strong global presence in North America and throughout the world. There are over 30,000 FileHold users worldwide. And FileHold has over 450 customers ranging from government, finance, manufacturing, construction, engineering, healthcare, education, the natural resources sector, and nonprofit agencies. We like to compare FileHold to an iceberg where above the surface only a portion of our features are visible and actually being used by our customers. However, if you look below the surface, you'll see that FileHold contains a wide array of features that are used to help store and manage your documents securely. In today's live demo, we're going to be showing you some of FileHold's standard features and a few optional features as well. After watching today's webinar, if you'd like to see our features in greater detail, we can arrange a private demo at your convenience and further discuss your requirements in greater detail. All right, so just before we get into today's live demo, I'm going to briefly introduce you to FileHold's very easy to use interface and explain some of the areas on the main screen that you're going to be looking at during the live demo. So first of all, at the very top of your screen is our full text search bar, which is used for performing general searches for your documents. We also have advanced search features, which allow you to search by specific metadata fields or other search criteria. And our search feature is a very prominent feature in FileHold, so you can quickly get your documents and find them very quickly. Moving now into the center of the screen, this is where you're going to select and view your documents. And you're going to see there are also various toolbar symbols where you can perform various functions such as uploading, checking out documents, launching a workflow, looking at offline documents, taking a look at your favorite documents, etc. And moving now over to the right side of the screen, this is our metadata pane. And this shows the key search fields when you're searching for a specific document in FileHold. And moving over to the left side of the screen, this is our document library structure. And this is very similar to Windows Explorer, where documents can be filed away in cabinets, drawers, and folders. There are also user access rights that can be set up for every drawer, for every individual or group on every drawer, folder, and document, which is stored in our repository. And finally, now getting to the very bottom of the screen, this is our document tray. And this allows our users to collect and perform actions on documents that are filed in various folders. These documents can be viewed very quickly without even having to open them. And FileHold also has document viewers that allow users to view and edit files in both the web client and desktop application. And the document viewers are also capable of assembling new documents into PDF format in the FileHold library. So that's the end of the introduction portion. So the rest of the time is reserved now for the live demo. So I'm going to hand the controls over to Kevin now. So Kevin, are you ready to get going, sir?
I'm ready to go. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear. So I'm going to give you the controls now, and we will see your screen very shortly here.
All right, I am now broadcasting my screen. You should be able to see the FileHold website.
Yep.
Yep, okay. And then now I'm just gonna go over to my server. Can you see the blue background?
Yeah, your blue background with all your icons on it.
Okay, perfect. So hi everybody, thank you for coming. We really appreciate you taking an hour today to take a deeper look at FileHold. What we're gonna do, as David kind of alluded to, is give you a good general overview of FileHold. There's so many components and things going on in the software that we just won't be able to get to today, but by the end of this, you'll have a pretty good sense of how this could help you. We also know that these demos tend to spur questions, so go ahead and if you do think of a question, enter it into the chat as that happens, and we'll address them one by one at the end of the call. It really helps everybody. You may think of a question someone else didn't, and vice versa. So please put those in the chat and we'll get to them. All right, so the first thing we need to do to log into FileHold is to log into FileHold, and there's three interfaces of where we can do that. There's a desktop application, there is a mobile interface, and a web browser. You can double click this little icon to log in. Sometimes I'll right click a little stack of papers to do it. You can have Active Directory or Azure AD authenticate you. Duo two-factor authentication could bring you in. But eventually you'll find yourself here. This is what I like to call the front door or the main screen of FileHold. And one of the things we want people to notice about this interface is right away is how clean and simple everything has been designed. And this is very much on purpose. There's a lot of real estate up here, a lot of options to fill it with buttons, kind of like you see in Microsoft Office or Photoshop or something. There's none of that going on. You've got settings that most people will never touch. You've got a search bar that behaves a lot like Google, and then you have a file cabinet system based on a library. In that library, you have file cabinets. Within a file cabinet, there are drawers inside. If you pull a drawer open, as you might have guessed, there are folders, and if I go into a folder, there are files. From here, everything just makes perfect sense. If I double click on something, it just opens up in Adobe or Word or Excel or AutoCAD or whatever it is that you have. If I right click a file, I'll see menu options, and these menu options may be longer or shorter depending on the rights that I have. You can see that delete and rename are not lit up here for me, and we'll get into security a bit more, but you've got a right click option. The buttons actually tell you what they do, so I don't have to get a manual out every time I want to remember something. I can just very quickly see what these are. You can sort by columns, you can add or remove columns, and set up your own custom views for whatever reason. So if I log in the morning and I want to see things from more of an invoice point of view, I might see different fields or different attributes than somebody who wants to see more of an HR point of view. Okay, so very, very simple. This is something that on the first 3 minutes of owning FileHold, you already understand what's happening. You can browse and find what you want. Now, it looks like Windows Explorer kind of, but it's not. It's not based on Windows Explorer at all, and nor is it based or given the problems that come with Windows Explorer. So for example, I can't accidentally grab policy and procedure and drag it into employment. I'm trying. You can't move things like that. I could set this structure up so that people are not allowed to delete folders. Everything is properly named. We have a structure that we adhere to. All those things can be controlled. So it feels like something we're used to without some of the problems that we're used to. But this is not the most efficient way of finding a file. Browsing is what we do because we didn't have a choice before. We had to browse. We had to go into a file share and make a folder and throw things in it and hope that we got it in the right spot. But FileHold's going to change that dynamic. What happens now is if you click on search, or had you use that search bar up at the top right that I mentioned, and you type in a word or a phrase, FileHold does not think or even care about any of the structure I just talked about. The only thing it cares about is security. I got 71 results by searching the word policy. David did the same exact search. He might get 1 million documents because he can see more than I can. So it does search through the library. It's going through every bit of it. It's going through all the file cabinets you have rights to, all the drawers and folders and subfolders. It's searching through the file name, looking for the word policy. Although you can see here, this says policy manual, policy handbook, but there's no mention of any meaningful words in this file name. This file name is just sort of gibberish. This one says inspection. This one says application. So we've passed Windows Explorer. It doesn't care about location. It doesn't even necessarily care about the file name. So that means it's doing much more. In addition to searching the file names, it's also searching any metadata fields or attributes that we have. So this is a policy memo, employee name, their social, the policy type, effective date, whether or not it was signed. If I click on this one, you can see that the elements change. If I click on the specification, they change again. So any of these data points that you're seeing here are under your command, and we're going to talk a lot about this in a little bit. It's searching those. It's also searching the version history, who owns it, who last touched it, is it part of a workflow, has it been annotated or redacted, the file size, where does it live. It's also searching every word of every page, hunting for the word policy. And if we scroll down, sooner or later, we're going to find the word policy, and you'll see that it starts to light it up here in yellow. We can get a very quick preview of why this document came back. Now this one happens to be really, really long, and so policy probably shows up more times, but I'm going to show you a trick that makes this even easier. At the very bottom, you'll see that the author was Eric. The company was North Dakota Department of Transportation. It's created back in 2014. It was modified a month later. All the data points about the file are also searchable. So you've got all these things happening at the same time. I'm searching the entire library structure. I'm searching the file name. I'm searching the index information about the file that you choose. I'm searching the version properties, content, and the file properties themselves. It becomes impossible to misfile anything. I could throw all of your correspondence in a contracts folder, and FileHold does not think that way. It doesn't care. A person who's browsing would care, and it might be annoying to them, but it wouldn't change the fact that you could find anything you want in a matter of seconds based on the power that you're seeing here. Now, this system goes far beyond just that. I typed in a search for the word policy, but what if I want to see all policies pertaining to COVID in the last 90 days that need to be updated that Kevin worked on before he went on vacation that mentions safety? I'm going to be able to come back and get really, really, really specific about the kinds of documents I want and the kind of fields that might be useful when I'm running reports or when I'm trying to find nuanced information. So we're going to come back and really drill into search. There's a lot of options here for you. But before I do that, to me, one of the biggest daunting things about rolling out a DMS system is when you see this. We are all kind of used to file names. That's something we've all done. But this concept of metadata or index information is a bit new. And sometimes people feel like, well, that's going to take me a lot longer then, isn't it, to file something? How is this going to happen? How are we going to get things in quickly and accurately? Where does this all come from? So I like to focus on this because I think it helps you kind of see how easy it is and how automated it can be to bring files in. I'm proposing this may be less work for you than it is today to come in and rename a file. So in order to illustrate that, I'm going to leave all this behind for a while, and I'm going to go to an area called the inbox. Just think of the inbox as a big empty table. Okay, and it'd be no different if you had a file room. Somebody would bring documents into a table, dump them out on that table, and you would look at it and say, what do I have here? And where should I put them? It'd be no different. So what I'm going to do is just go out and grab a whole whack of documents here. And just notice that there's a bunch of different things in here. PDFs, there's a Word document, a text field, there's a video, there's a CAD file, SolidWorks, all these things. So I'm just going to drag and drop them onto the table. Okay, and now here they are. Now, I'm not in real life a drag and drop kind of person, so I would have done this. I hit the plus sign, and I would have gone out and browsed to the files I want, which is fine. It's no problem. It's whatever you prefer. Now, I could have also scanned into here. I could have had my multifunction talking to this. I could have incoming electronic faxes talking to the table. I could have a watch folder on my desktop, or I could have all my remote workers putting into a folder that's being watched by FileHold at home office or on the cloud. But regardless of what happens, the concept never changes. What am I looking at? What is this thing? And where's it supposed to go? No different than if you were filing it in a file cabinet. So here's everything that you've got, and you're gonna go look at something. So if we grab something, we would double click on the file, and we could see that this document is here. Okay, so then what we would do is we would hit set metadata. And as soon as I do that, a door opens up. And in this door, there's going to be a list, a unique list, by the way, of all the kinds of documents that you deal with in your company or organization every single day. You're not stuck by words we thought of. These will be things you think of, and we're going to help you build all this together. So let's say that this had been an I-9. We know it's an invoice, but let's say it's an I-9. As soon as I select I-9, then based on that decision, I need to give you the employee name, number, address, social, and date of birth. Okay, so that makes sense. We're filing an I-9 and we want that information. Now, I've got a lot of employees, and I'm not the best speller in the world, especially when it comes to last names. So rather than type in here, I'm going to hit a drop-down list. And this list may have my entire staff in it, where all I have to do is hit an A to jump down to the Alex, or T to jump down to text. But if I choose Alex's name, it may suddenly already know the employee number, address, social, and date of birth for me automatically. We can reach into databases. We can reach into your accounting software, your HRIS systems, your CRMs, your EMRs, and so on. But the idea is that we can do database pulls here and validate Alex against the other data we know about him already. Now, we know in this case, this is not an I-9. I did this very much on purpose to show you that you control what the I-9 is, but it's not an I-9, it's an invoice. So if I were to jump down to my invoice section, you can see now that the values have changed entirely. It's something different now. It wants vendor, date, PO, amount, terms. And just like before, I have a lookup, but this might be in my accounting software instead of my HR system. As soon as I hit Citrix, it might already know that this is net 30. And now all I have to do is fill in 3 fields instead of 5. So the main takeaway here is that you're in complete control over what your documents are called. We're going to go through this together and kind of work through it during a best practices session during implementation and kind of tell you what other companies have done, kind of learn more about your process. We're very interested to know what kind of problems you run into, what kind of reports you have to run daily or monthly or quarterly, so on. but you have complete autonomy over this. Now, once you've filled in these fields, whether it's automated or not, 4 things will happen. The first thing that will happen is the system will clean up after itself. This file is no longer going to be in a file share somewhere. It's no longer going to be out on someone's desktop. It's now in FileHold exclusively. It's under control, it's under security, it's under versioning, it's under an audit trail, and it no longer lives in that local file share. The second thing it could do is notify you that it's there. So you care about these, so the moment they come in or give me a weekly summary, here's everything that came in today, I want to see it. The third thing it can do is rename the file for you. I want my file names to be uniform and standard. We've got people doing all caps, we've got people doing all lowercase, underscores, abbreviations. All that needs to stop. Everything needs to be standardized and uniform. This is going to allow us to do that automatically and cut back on the time it would take to create a long file name like the ones you're seeing here. And then the final thing it can do is start a workflow. And we're going to get into that, but the idea is that this invoice may need to go through 7 review and approval stages before it ultimately gets signed off on and paid. So we can automate that process as well the moment something is filed. So the main takeaway here is you've got this metadata or index information that you control, and we're looking for opportunities to speed this up. Now in this list, I want you to notice that all these say set metadata. They all require me to define what the index information should be, except for if you look at the bottom 2, it knows what they are already. And all I did was drag them in. I didn't actually go in and tag them yet. So if I click on this I9 down here, what you'll find is that the metadata or the index information is already done. And that is because we can read forms. We can extract data off of forms for you. So if you have boilerplate forms, or if you have onboarding forms or new vendor setup forms, what we want to do is actually set up FileHold to monitor the fields that you're filling in and map them so that when they arrive, without any human intervention, that metadata is done and filled in. The file gets renamed, everything gets put away. Here's one below it is a request for deviation. You'll see that, again, it pulled all that data in for us. Saved me a ton of time. Now I've got 2 fields here that are optional where I could say what kind of request was this and what was the severity. Maybe you want a human being to review this, maybe not. There's things we can do, but the idea is that you control what we're doing here. Now, another real common way of bringing files into FileHold is through Microsoft Office integration. And David's got his PowerPoint up, and what you'll notice is that at the very top, there's a button called FileHold. So if I just finish this PowerPoint or a Word document or a spreadsheet, all I have to do is browse the system maybe to find the artwork that we use for Webinar Wednesdays, or maybe I want to add this into the system or collaborate with other people. But in this case, I just want to save this into FileHold. All I have to do is hit this green plus sign, and a panel opens up with a list, and this list should look familiar. This is a list of all the schemas that you use for your company. So if it was an I-9, you would have selected that, and then here are the choices that you have. Had it been an invoice, this should line up with what we just did. We now have our vendor list. We now have our payment terms and so on. We have all that capability. So you'll find those integrations in all of Microsoft Office. Even Outlook does it. And what's cool about Outlook is that there's different things you can do. I can go in and just grab an attachment out of Outlook and save it directly into FileHold just by hitting add. I can drag and drop a message into FileHold. I could hit a button that will extract the to, the from, the subject, and the date, read every word of the email body and every word of the attachments within that email. And what that would look like is if later on you said, Kevin said he emailed us a couple weeks ago and we're having email problems right now. So I'm going to type in Kevin. And if I find that email, I'll find all the data about it. I'll find out the size, when it came in, when it was modified down to the second, did it have any attachments? And if I hit highlight results, again, you'll be able to see Kevin was mentioned in the to, he was mentioned in the syntax of the email. Here's the first attachment with all the words inside. Here's the second attachment with all the words inside. So we have complete control over that. But if you ever click on the email again, you're right back in the world you recognize, and you can forward this on or add into it, whatever you need to do. Okay, so again, that's a real automated way of bringing files in, and it's a real common thing to be able to work with Microsoft Office. So another way that we can automate things is through a concept called watch folders. And so what I'm going to do is, let's say we were caught up, we got everything done, and we just got back from lunch. Meanwhile, somebody out there was building new documents. And so they have a folder. Maybe it's a folder they've had for 10 years. What we're going to do is we're going to ask FileHold to monitor this either brand new folder or old folder. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to go to Tools and go to Watch Folders. And I'm going to clean out the ones I don't need anymore. I'm going to hit Add. And I'm going to select a folder I want to monitor. Now, I only have to do this once. I don't have to be a programmer or anybody fancy doing this. I just hit OK. And I'm going to explain this box in a minute. It's actually pretty important. But for now, I'm just going to hit Save and go about living my life. And what I will tell you is that you have now built a bridge between your remote satellite offices and your home office or your cloud server. Without being a programmer, without doing any fancy stuff, I can now create content. Here's a Word doc. Here is a spreadsheet. And maybe I have a video or a CAD file. It could be anything. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to use 3 documents. It could be 1,000. It could be 1,000,000. I'm just going to put them in that folder. Now, in about 10 to 15 seconds, I never know when this is going to happen, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 seconds, FileHold is going to start sniffing around and see if it finds any watch folders that have been created or set up. If it does find something, at a minimum, it's going to either bring it to your attention, to your personal inbox, or it's going to bring it to somebody else's. Maybe you're a field agent, and as you're taking photographs, those photos are ending up at corporate where somebody else is tying them to an account. But as you can see here, this one was less than 10. They're now here. So my job when I get back from lunch is to set metadata, set destination, and get these filed away properly. Now, sometimes we already know where documents go, and we can further that bridge. So I'm going to go back to that gray box by just clicking on this link, and I'm going to tell the system where I want the policies to end up in the first place. I want them to go to my policy and procedure area. So now they're going to automatically go to that home location. I also know what kind of policies they are. So I'm going to come in here and preset the kind of policy it is. Let's say it was a health plan. Let's say the document number had a bunch of 8s in it. It was issued today, or more likely the 1st, let's say. And this has to do with our inpatient care for a hospital. In essence, what I've done is in that bridge, if somebody puts 1,000,000 documents in a folder in San Antonio, Texas, they're going to be brought in to home office, wherever that is. It's going to classify the file as a policy, fill in all the metadata, rename the file, clean up after itself. It's going to send a notification to somebody who cares about new policies that they're here. It might send a policy notification to everyone on staff that they've got 7 days to sign off on it. It's going to send you calendar entries, emails with links in it at a frequency that you choose, all because somebody put some files in a folder that they were going to do anyway. It's a behavior they've already been doing. So not only can you do that outside of FileHold, if I've got a folder out here living, I can do the same thing inside of FileHold. So let's go into a folder. Let's go back to HR. It's kind of my favorite example. Is I know who Andy is. I know his name, his social. He's worked here for 20 years. So why would I want to sit there and key all that information about him? He's a static known entity. Same thing with your clients. Same thing with your matters for law firms. So the idea is that you can preset information at the folder level inside of FileHold. If I go to Properties and you come over here and look at auto tagging, I've told the system that anything that comes in here is going to be a policy document with the following metadata, where I can come in and preset the person's name. It was Andy. I can put in his social. I could put in the policy type that it was, and on you go. You could fill in all the data. Is it an active employee? Yes, it is. What you're essentially doing is automating this so that you never have to type again. And the way that that would look is if you drag and drop 1,000,000 documents in this folder, or if you do what I do and you hit the plus sign and you go out and find a whole whack of documents here, they're done. They're now finished and ready to go. The minute I look them over, you can see that all the metadata is finished, and I don't even have to stop here. There's a way where you can automatically tell the system to send them immediately. And I only stop here so that people can see them in the demo, but in reality, in real life, as soon as they hit, they'd be put away, and those notifications would happen. Okay, so everything that I'm talking about is a standard feature in FileHold so far. And there's a reason for that, because there will be times that you want a human being to look at something. If there's handwriting, or if it's something that requires a judgment call, we need a human being to do that as of right now. In There are other methods though where there's no reason for that. It could be completely automated. It could be happening at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we don't want to sit there and classify these things in. We also have other methods of bringing documents in. We have a tool called ADI that can do headless automation from your other systems. We also have a front-end tool called SmartSoft that can do zonal OCR, batch separation, image cleanup. So there's lots of ways to do this, and we're going to be there to help you. And I think maybe now is an important time to mention that anybody who moves ahead with FileHold, we're going to follow a very strict implementation plan and a timeline. And one of the most important things we're going to do during this plan is best practices. We're going to sit down together and work out some of the things you've been doing, some of the problems you've run into, the kinds of questions you want to ask of the system. But just on anybody who wants to see this, we'll send it to you. But we have a template that will help you start thinking about planning this. It's probably the most daunting part of these systems, and we're going to help you with it every step of the way. All right, so all of that leads us back to the very beginning. As strange as that sounds, we're actually going to go back and browse. Remember, in the very beginning, we clicked on a folder, and that's how we found stuff. We also know that if we click on search and we type in the word policy, FileHold does not think or care about the structure. It just went through everything and gave me results based on security. Now, one of the things I did not mention is that it's trying to do what Google does in terms of relevancy. This one's 100% likely to be what I'm after. This one is 25%. So it actually has a ranking system based on how often that word came up in the document. Now, it skews towards long documents. This one is like 400 pages long. And so it's very likely, only because the word policy comes up so much, this policy manual we know is very likely to be a policy because it's in the name. It's only 25%, and that's because maybe it only mentions it once or twice. So we can take a look at that and kind of see. So, but there is a tool there trying to help you as you go. But the most powerful thing in FileHold is going to be what we call the advanced search. And when we say advanced, it's not to mean that it's difficult. It's actually very simple, but it gives you the ability to get very specific. So if I click on advanced here, I get a string, just like before. It's a search bar. But in this search bar, I have a list of all the kinds of documents that my company deals with. Here's that I-9 we talked about. Here's the invoice. And here are the fields that were required or optional when we put an invoice away. And because you control all this, it means you can ask any question you want of the system. I'm looking for an invoice. That'll give us every invoice we've ever had as a company. Well, FileHold's been around since 2005, so I don't want that. I'm going to hit the plus sign and go a little further with it. And I'm going to say, and I know the date of that invoice. And if you knew the exact date, I always like to point to the first of the month because that's memorable. But what if we don't know? What if it was the 30th? What if it was of last month? What if it was 2.5 weeks ago and we're just not sure? You can do things like this: no older than a month, no older than 5 years, no older than 37 days, at least 12 days between. I want to see everything between April 1st and May 3rd. Hit the plus sign again. I know who the vendor is. And I could type in the vendor if I remember it, or if you're like me, you would just pull it in from a list. And maybe you want more than one. I'm looking for 3 vendors. Make sure they paid us. Hit the plus sign again. It wasn't me who worked on the file. It was somebody else in our company. Now here's a company directory. Has this thing been reviewed yet? Has anybody even looked at it? Do we even know where it is in the process? I can look and see if it's pending, if it's on hold. I can put in keywords here like safety. And on you go. Now, the most powerful thing about this is that not only can you customize searches that you just dream up at any moment, you can also save them and use them over and over again. So at the end of every month, I'm a property manager, and I have to produce a report that tells me how many vacancies do I have, what the current lease rate is, any data points that I want. I can just simply come in and press a button over here in my Save Searches and say, here are all the documents that met your criteria. And because I can control any of the columns out here, I can also export this out as a report on the fly. So this can be extremely powerful. We can generate a CSV file that can be ingested into another system with any of the data that you thought of. You have complete command over the system, and that's a really, really powerful thing. Now, what I also like about this is that you can produce public Save Searches, so I don't even have to know how you did this. All I know is my life is easier now. I press a button, and here are all the I-9s I need to address today. Here are all the policies that need to be updated. Here are all documents I'm allowed to delete this month. out of the system. So you can set up things that are common for everyone. I also like that you can do a hybrid of these things. So some people who are going to have trouble letting go of browsing don't have to completely let go right away. They could go down to HR, go into a person's folder, and right-click their folder, and then click search. Now what you've done, instead of getting 70 results for policy, if I type in policy under that control, I have 4, and 4 is much more manageable. I can very quickly fish through this and say, yeah, that's the one I want, or no, maybe it's that one. Gives you very quick access, especially with this document preview. You don't even have to do that if you don't want to. There's a URL that you can put in other systems, and that might be the way you interface. I don't even think about it. I just go to my accounting, I click a link, and it brings me here. And that's the end of it. It could be that you launch searches from other applications. So I have this Word document open, and I'm looking for the word budget. I can just hit a key on my keyboard, or from another application, from a field in another software, that maybe it's a software that I wrote. I'm going to hit Control D, and FileHold just launched a search and brought me anything that talks about budget. So imagine you're out on the website and you find a stock and you want to look and see if that's something you should recommend to your client. Grab the number or the letters and hit the button, and you're done. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that there is no right or wrong here. We're not trying to come in and change a culture to the point where everyone's frustrated, where this is hard to use. This is meant to feel like an extension of things we've already been doing, but also allow for evolution. Allow people to say, well, it'd be really handy to know how many contracts we executed in March. It gives you that ability to kind of mix and match these disciplines at your own speed. Okay, so that's the big stuff in FileHold that we've talked about, how to file things, kind of a general look and feel. I'm going to show you some things that it does that you may use every day of your life, you may never use, it just depends. They're just kind of luxuries that you'll have. One of the first things I want to indicate is these stars. 3 of these stars are yellow, the rest are white. The yellow ones have been indicated as favorites so that I don't have to make copies or have documents everywhere not knowing what's the latest version. They're now in one room, and they live where they always live. This one's in legal, this one's in trust, this one's in HR, this one's in capital. The idea here, though, is that I've got quick access to it because I made a shortcut instead of a copy. Now the dots indicate security rights. If it's a green light, you might be able to delete it. You might be able to change the metadata. But if you go to one that has a red dot, it may be restricted and you can't delete it. You can't move it. And maybe it's temporary. Maybe you can move it in an hour from now, but not right now. This one happens to be locked because someone has it checked out. They're working on version 4, and when they're done, there's going to be a new version 5. And you'll be able to see all iterations of these versions as they happen. You'll also have a room where you can look at all the documents you're working on and check them back in, notify people that they're back, clean up your laptop when you're done so that I don't forget, did I remember to put that back or not? We'll have an audit trail that you did. You can subscribe to documents. I care about this document, so I want to know if it's updated or changed or moved. I also want to manage these folders. If anybody puts anything in that folder, I want to know immediately, once a day or once a week. I'm waiting for an inspection. As soon as the inspection happens, I'd like to know about it. You can set reminders on things. I need to be thinking about this loan closing binder every month until I get it done. Or once a year, I should probably review this. Or once into the future. Or time cards should be handled every week if I hope to get paid. Anything I've recently looked at would be here. So if I go to lunch and come back, here's the last thing we did. Anything I recently pulled in would be here. There's a calendar telling us what's going on, what's up for destruction. We have built-in retention and disposition. So we keep active contracts for 7 years. After 7 years, they should be deleted. They're a liability. They can automatically be purged. Or we could say, no, after 7 years, they should go to archive for 3 more years and then be deleted, or maybe never deleted. You have full retention and disposition in FileHold as well. These reminders can bother you once a day. They can bother you every hour on the hour. They can even turn an evil color of red, letting you know that you're late and that there may be some other visibility of things going on. There's a dashboard here telling you how many people are in the system right now, how full your storage is getting. To do things like system updates, you simply click one of these tiles, add in a new license file, and you're up and running. Now, I also mentioned that if you hover over buttons, the buttons tell you what they're for. You can get a copy of something, you can check something out. If you highlight more than one document, you'll have a linking feature where you can relate files together. It's really, really useful. If I was on the phone with you and I was closing on your loan and you said, hey, did you get the inspection? I don't have to go hunt for it. I just click on this number 8 and all linked files are now in front of me, regardless of where they live. And from here, I can do all kinds of nice things. I can gather them up, and I could print them together into one major PDF. I could email them to you, and I could send you attachments or even just links. I'll build a table of contents for you, so you don't have to worry about anything. We're not uploading sensitive information. We don't care about file size. It allows people to have access into FileHold as long as they have the rights to do that. Okay, you can also route them for review and approval, which we're going to talk about. You could delete them if you have rights to. And again, the buttons tell you what they do. So if you forget, you just hover over it, it'll tell you. This one will let you edit the metadata, make changes. Maybe you notice the data filing is wrong. You can fix it. There's a document tray. Think of this as your desk. So let's say that I've got to work on something over the weekend. I can grab what I want and just pull it down onto my desk. I haven't made a copy of anything. Nothing's moved, but I've got this kind of room where I can work out of. Now, when I'm done with this room, say, okay, I finished these up. I'm going to clear them off my desk. I've not deleted anything. I've not hurt anybody. I just don't see them in my day-to-day anymore. They're not in my desk. I also talked about when I typed in the word policy, and I illustrated that when I got this top one, it's a really long document. If I hit highlight results and I show you the preview of it, I could be scrolling for a long time. And every time you see a flash of yellow, you're seeing the word policy. My mouse is already tired. I don't want to do this all day. So what I would do instead is press this button here. And what that would do is open up that document in a little bit more than just a preview mode. What it's actually doing is generating bookmarks to show me where did the word or phrase you ask about show up in the document. So it showed up on page 1, then on page 3, then on page 4. And if I scroll down, you'll see, okay, it shows up on 57, but then not again until 64. This is very convenient. If I'm looking for a certain amount of content, it's giving me context around the keyword. So I was looking for the average volume DDPs. So I press that, and it takes me right down to whatever page that was, 57, and allows me to see why it came back. This might be the paragraph I need to write my document. So I can grab it, gives me a little copy button, which I use all the time. You could hit edit or annotate, and it will present you with some options that if you have rights to, you could come in here and redact out sensitive information. You could add or remove pages. You could have stamps that you put or watermarks onto the page. So it gives you some annotations and capabilities beyond just seeing the preview. Now, every button you just saw also has a right-click equivalent. So, and that's how that's how I work. I like to right-click things. So I could right-click open in viewer, highlight results, make a copy, check out, send to the printer, to export, to the tray, subscribe. So you don't need to use buttons if you don't want. You'll have a right-click. But there's two on here that you didn't see, and that's workflow and courier. So if you remember back to the inbox when I was talking about filing, once the file metadata is ready and the document is ready to go, the minute it's sent to the system, a workflow could automatically happen. You don't have to do anything. It would just kick off right away. Sometimes, though, that's not what you want. Sometimes you want to be able to decide, today, I'm going to route this document down this road, but tomorrow it may go down that road. Or maybe I want to add it to a road that's already moving. If I press one of these buttons, it will present to you what's about to happen to that document in its life cycle. It'll talk about that I want this document hidden, who can see what's going on. They're not part of the workflow, but they care about the outcome of it. Kevin's got 1 day to review something. Kevin has to verify and stamp it's correct, and then somebody else needs to send it out for Adobe Sign or DocuSign. The customer called, and normally we don't do this, but we're going to add one more step in here because this is unique and you can control it. Or no, it's always 7 steps. We don't allow deviations, and this is the way it needs to be. But as soon as this kicks off, emails would go out to anyone involved, including observers. Calendar entries would go out. And then in dark black, they would see that they have new tasks to take care of. It would tell you what's going on, where it's at. It would show you not only the document that you're being asked to look at, but because of the linking feature, you could see supporting documents, and that might help you make your decision. But if you liked what you saw, you can hit complete task. The panel opens up. It allows you to say, yes, this looks great, or no, it doesn't. Here's some comments. I like your idea, but I put together a draft copy that I think we should consider. And I could browse out to David's work and bring that in and say, this may be interesting. I could also put in a password that verifies I'm allowed to do this. I'm allowed to put this type of feedback in the system. All of you then would be able to go to a dashboard and see where things are. These workflows haven't started yet. This one's halfway done. These are completely done. And you could break them down and say, okay, what are we waiting on? Well, Anne, April, and Andy need to do their part. Andy called in sick, so we need to delegate this to David until Andy gets back. Or I'm a manager. I don't care about the day-to-day necessarily, but I want to know if something's late or canceled or restarted. All that could be controlled here as well. I know I'm going to be out next week, so all my work is going to go to Kevin until I get back. Now, not only is this powerful and simple to use, it's also simple to build. To build these maps, you will not have to be a technical person nor get IT involved every time you want to do it. It's something you'll be able to do on your own, so long as you've been given rights to. Sometimes we want to send things out of the company to someone who doesn't know what FileHold is, and there's an option for that as well. In this case, instead of choosing workflow, I'm going to choose courier, and I'm going to send out an external email to somebody to do whatever I want, whether it's view or approve. It's going to be external with an email address, instructions. I'm going to set up some rules. They're not allowed to print or download. They have to have a password to open it. It's going to expire in a week. Once I launch that, emails are going to go out to the people involved, and I'm going to go back to my Outlook here. And your customer or your attorney or your temporary employee is going to get an email notification with a link in it. They're going to click the link, and whatever browser they use is going to fire off. Your logo could be at the top. They will not see these two buttons until they've at least looked at it or downloaded it, which is what you allowed. I'm going to hit view. We can now see that in the browser they saw it. You now have an audit trail down to the second that they have seen this file, who saw it and when. They now have approval buttons. They can now put in comments. They can put in their password and sign off on this document, possibly even upload a document back to you. This is a very inexpensive way of doing it. It's also does not require them to be a licensed user in FileHold. Rather than licensing it, you buy stamps, and you can use stamps to send back and forth to outside entities. So very unique, very powerful. Okay, a couple other things you need to know, and I know we're getting close to the end here, so I'm going to move a little bit faster. Any recent folders you've been to are here, and I really like this. If I'm looking at admissions, I click on that, it floats to the top. If I go back to policy and procedure, now it's at the top. I just think that's a handy way to think, or if you're going back to things you're doing. You've got virtual folders, so if you want to create your own room where you have copies of things, and it's a great place to make your own mess. I even have a folder called chaos where I have all these things here, but I'm not moving anything. This is still in accounting, this one's still in personal trust, but I've got quick access to things. It's going to feel like a copy to me, but it isn't. It's under control. Now, sometimes we want to collaborate. We have an auditor coming in, and they gave us a list of everything they want. So here's everything they asked for. Their OSHA documents, an application, a photograph. Well, not only will it be nice for them, they can very quickly find what they need, but you can audit what they spent time on. They asked me for 20 documents, but they only really spent time on these 3. You'll be able to see exactly what they did. Okay. We also set security 12 levels in FileHold. So when you log in the morning, you might see 1 file cabinet. Somebody else can see 10. And just because I can get into a file cabinet doesn't mean I'll see everything. I might see all the drawers, but as soon as I open up a drawer, it may be empty. As soon as I go into a folder, I might see 5 documents in here. There's actually 100, and I might have full rights to delete this one, but limitations to what I can do with this one. There is no clever way around this. You can't type in a search term hoping you'll get lucky and finding payroll. It simply does not exist because you don't have the schema level security that you'll need. So you have complete control over this. It can be mirrored up through Active Directory or Azure AD or the like. All that what I've been showing you is happening at the desktop level. Let me show you what the mobile interface looks like. It's very, very similar. Let's go over here. And so here's your favorites, your checked out documents, your workflows. You've got your search here. If I click on a search, you'll see that it's very, very similar. There are differences though. First, let me show you that if you right click, you've got your workflows, your couriers, if you hover over buttons. So not a big departure if somebody wants to use the browser, but you can't drag and drop here. You can't drag and drop into this room. There is no calendar here. That needs to be installed on the desktop side. It's a browser, so you have no integration with Microsoft Office at this level. Nothing's been installed, is I guess what we're saying here. You also have an administration menu where you can run reports. so I can look and see how productive we've been, what kind of month we have, and there's been a bit of a slowdown lately, it feels like. So any kind of workflow dashboards we can see. So here's what's been going on. We have this many quotes out, quite a contrast from last month. You'd be able to see all that. You can recover documents that shouldn't be deleted. You could run a review and say, I want to see everything Kevin printed before he went on vacation. You'd be able to see everything printed or deleted or moved or copied. Any possibility has been picked up permanently in an audit trail. The last thing we all did together is we looked at this document from this Gmail address at 1:47 just a few minutes ago. I used to have mine set to seconds, but I turned it off. But you could have it say 147.12 if you wanted to. Setting up the system is simple. You will not have to be an IT person to take ownership of this. You'll be able to do this yourself in a couple weeks. Step one, what kind of document do you want? Step two, who are you going to allow to see this type of document at the group or user level or through Active Directory, what have you? What fields do you want? If the field isn't there yet, let's make a new one. It's going to be a text field, and if so, how long should it be? This is kind of as scary as FileHold gets. Building workflows is the same way. What kind of workflow are you making? How many steps do you want there to be? Is it editable or is it locked down? So this is probably the ugliest thing you'll see in FileHold. It's very, very intuitive to build out the system. You'll have complete autonomy almost right away. You will also have a mobile interface that works with Android, Apple, or Windows. It's not installed, so there's nothing that you have to worry about in terms of deployment on a device. But if you have a phone or tablet, you can navigate to a browser, this is kind of the life you'll see, where you can add documents from your phone or tablet. You can approve workflows with your finger. You'll be able to see what's been requested for sign-off. You have advanced search, as well as your saved searches, and so on, all from here. So if I was looking for the word policy, type in search, here are all the documents. This one's the one I want. I can send you a URL, get a copy, and off you go. Okay, so I'm going to hammer through this last little bit of PowerPoint slideshow. We just never have time to get to what we need to, so I'm going to hit on a few things that we just don't have time to cover. The first one that you'll notice we didn't talk a lot about, and that's scanning, and that's very much on purpose. FileHold is completely neutral, completely agnostic to the scanning device that you use, to the way that you scan. We can work with any device you have. We're going to provide you with a front-end tool called SmartSoft Capture to be able to do automated zonal OCR, batch separation, barcode recognition. So that's pretty much an individual conversation we want to have with you. If you already have a front-end tool that you like Kofax or Abby or one of the good ones, we can integrate with it. You can just keep doing what you're doing. But we are neutral, so don't worry about hardware. We can support different languages. We did English today, but we could have done Spanish or French. Those are supported. We also can provide you with a data dictionary to put in your own languages for our global customers. We have third-party integration components like Salesforce integration, Dynamics, Active Directory, Office. We have a fast find tool where I can hit a button from applications you created and launch searches. I have a print driver. I also have a web services API. So anything you dream up could be done through that API, and it's free. We give it away. We have health check software that can make sure that all services are running smoothly. If Windows puts out a major update and something's not right, this may be one of the first places we go to make sure that everything is running correctly. We have forms processing out of the box. It's a standard feature. So if you already have forms that you're submitting to your customers or clients, your life is already exponentially easier. We can just drop these forms into the system and read the metadata directly off the file. We have deep levels of security. We have single point login, web services, SSL, session, template, and structural levels that go down 12 layers. We can synchronize with Active Directory, Azure AD. We can integrate with Duo, two-factor authentication. We can run many reports. A lot of the screens you saw are exportable as reports. The search is, the audit trail is. We have CSV exports just based on searches that you do. We can integrate with SQL reporting tools. We are FIPS compliant. There are usage logs that can all be pushed out if you need to. And finally, we can store information governance and records management as well. So active documents, inactive documents can come in immediately as frozen records where they can't be deleted or modified. We could set up retention and disposition policies based on your compliance rules. We can track physical documents, hardware, equipment, software keys, version control, history, search, full text documents, legal holds, metadata storage. This is all part of what FileHold can do.